Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. In this video, we are going to learn how we can update the business object only with the updated row. In previous video, we have learned how to create editable table. We already learned to create ADP variable to use for that editable table and how we can update the business object table based on that updated rows. All these things we have already learned. But in this video, we will learn how we can update business object only for the specific row which we have updated from front end. So let me show you the application and the issue we are facing last time. So here you can see this is the web page application we created. In this application, if you will see, we have edited first row and make at Aaron instead of Aaron a Zafar something. And now here let me go for the second row. I will give the as Suraj something. Now if you will see, when I will click on save button, it will update all the row in business object. That should not be the case, and that's the issue. Like we unnecessarily updating all the row, right? So as per our logic, it is correct that it's updating all the row from this ADP to the business object. So if you will go to the network here, if I will click on save, so ideally we updated first two row, so it should update only first two row in the business object. But when we will click on save, it will update all records, whatever 8 records we have in the business object. So you can see here in the network tab, if I go, you can see here we have 8 business object call, you can see. But this should not be the case, right? We should not update all the records. We should update only the first two records which we used to update and which we updated, right? So how we can add the logic, that kind of things we are going to learn in this video. If you will go to the previous code we created, if you will see, once user click on this save button, if you will go to the event, in the save button event, what we have done, we iterated the loop over the ADP variable, and whatever records we have, we are just going to update the business object. That's why we have, as we have 8 records in ADP variable, this loop is going to iterate 8 times. So we will restrict this one so that it will iterate only the time when we updated the record. So how we can achieve all these things we are going to learn in this video. So before going to continue, I will again go and create a new page with the same logic so that if you are new in this video, you can learn the same. So let me go to the application, and in the application, I will select again editable table. That's the same we were having, and here I will create a new web application. So if you will see, earlier it was editable table web app 1. I will go and create second. I will give the name as edit table app 2 and click on create. Now we have already business object created, right, which we used last time with the same data. So we will use same this time too. So this is our second page. Yeah, this is the latest page. So what I will do, I will remove this additional design we have in the page. So let me remove this one. Now this is our design. So what we will do, we will create one array variable. That array variable will hold the business object data in that. So for creating, just we have to go for type. First we will create the type so that the type can store the business object columns, right? Business object all the columns, so that same column we can display in the page. So go to the main start. Here in the type, I will click here custom. I will give the name as emp type, and sorry, and here I will go and create type from endpoint, as we have to get all the column from business object endpoint only. So we'll select from endpoint, and from endpoint we'll select that get, so that it will return only one value. Go next, and here we have to give the name of type. So I will give the name emp type, empbo type. And now here we will select what are columns we required in the type. So I want that ID column and the employee ID column, last name, gender, and email ID. All these columns I want to display, right? And I want to use. So just I will click on finish. So new type, you can see empbo type created with all these columns. Now we have to create one variable. So we will create array variable, right? So for creating the array variable, we have to give the variable name. So I will give the name as emp adp, that is array data provider variable. And instead of types string, we will select array data provider. and click on create. So when we are selecting the variable type as array data provider, it asking for the type, what kind of type will be for that. So this is the type. I will select that EMP BO type, and here we have to select the key attributes. That key attributes will be the key when we will use that array. So I will use that key as ID only, so that array record can be specified for each and every row. So key attribute will be id, right? So now here we created variable. That variable is array variable that can store multiple rows. So now it's time to load data into this variable. So what our requirement is, whenever this page will load, it should load the data into that ADP variable, so that when we will drag the table and we can map the table with that variable. So this is our page, and if you will go to the page event, we have one event called VB Inter. VB Inter event is something that when page will load, it will occur. It will trigger this event, right? And it will call the action chain. So this is our action chain. Even we can change the action chain name. So we'll give as VB Inter chain, action chain. This is our action chain name, and what action we want to perform inside this action chain or inside the event. So we want to invoke the REST API, so REST endpoint, to get the data from business object. So here we have to select the endpoint. What endpoint? So we'll go for get all employee BO. So it will return all the employee available in this business object, and where we want to store this data, we want to store this data into array data provider variable we created. So now this endpoint will return back all the data, and this data we want to store in the variable. For that we want to use assign variable, and here we have to select that variable for which variable we have to assign the data. If you will select here, or if you will go, you can see we have one variable, our EMP ADP variable dot data. So EMP ADP variable data we want to assign with this response. The response is, you can see, call REST, this one, right? Call REST. So for mapping this one, go to the variable, click on this expression builder. If you will expand here, inside the body, you will be able to see the item. This item is the array element for each and every records we have in the business object. If you will expand, you will be able to see the item, that item having all the columns which we are getting from the business object. So just we have to map this item, that is array element. So click save. Now whatever array element the first endpoint will return, same will be mapped to the array variable. And if you will see, this is our REST call, the first one. In REST call, we have different validation and filter. So here we want all the record. That's why we selected get all employee. But if you will see, whenever we are invoking any REST endpoint, it's returning data. With the data, it's returning various URL, various link in that. So we will restrict so that the invoke this call can be faster. So here you can see only data. In only data, we will make that only data as true, so that it will not return the link. So now we are done with only data as link true, so that it will return only columns, whatever column we have, instead of returning column with the link. So now it's done. So whenever this page will load, it will invoke the REST API, and whatever data it will return, it will store the data into array data provider variable we created. Now we have to add the table. So before adding table, I will add header, and here in heading I will give the name. So what was the name? You can see editable table using ADP. So I will give the name editable table using ADP, and again I will make it with a small, and below this one I will add one more, and I will give the value as update BO business object only with updated row. So this is the simple line I have added. Just now below that we have to add the table. So for adding the table, I will again search the table components. So we have table. You can see this is the table components we drag, and now we have to load data into this table. So from where we will load the data into this table? We will load the data into this table from ADP variable. So select this table, go to the data, and here we have to select our ADP variable. Click on FX, and here you can see EMP ADP our variable. Remove this null and save. Now we map that variable with this table, but we are not able to see any column because we add the variable, but we have to display the column. So you can see table columns. Click here, and here whatever column we have in the array variable, you will be able to see here. So I want to add ID. employee ID, and first name, last name, gender, and email address. So now you will be able to see all columns it's loaded. If you will go to the live mode, so you can see all columns are added. Now we have to make this table as editable, right? So for making this table as a editable, we have to go to the table properties, and if you will see the table here, we have selection mode, single node. We don't editable mode, it's now none. We have to go for edit. So now if you will see, the table mode is in editable mode. If we will go to the live mode, you can see when we double click here, we are able to see, but we cannot directly edit this one because the value we have here for this table, right? We have the label like simple text box, and we cannot update the text box value, label value. So we have to add the text box for each and every row which we want to update. For example, I want to update first name and last name only, right? I want to update only these two. So what we need to do, we have to go and search the input box, and this is our input box. Input text, yeah, input text, and I will drag this input text in the first name, and here this text is showing, right? I will remove this text. So now you can see this is in this, instead of label, this is input text, and for the same we have to go for the last name. So input text, again it will come here and remove the text. Now I don't want to change the gender, so here we have email too, but due to size, large size, it's not showing that image. So I will make something so that it will be visible. So if you will go to the code, go to the live mode, to the design. So what I will do, let me run this page so that we will check again, right? So let me run this page here. So it will take time, bit time to load. So now you can see loaded. Now here even we are not able to see the email tab, right? So you can see this is the one. Once we are going to double click any of the row, that row is going to be editable, but this text box we are not able to update. So that's the one issue, and we know that we have to make the text box as editable, right? So we will need to remove that read only. So if you will see, this is our table. If you will go to the table properties data, and here you can see we don't have email one, so we'll edit this one. Here we will add the email one. So now you can see we are able to see the email too, and we have to update this email too. So here what we will do, we will input box, here we have an input text. I will make made for the email tab 2, and instead of this text we will remove this text. So now you can see this email is looking like that. Now we have to make that text box as editable, right? Not read only. So select the text box, and if you will see here we have read only, so we will remove this one. Same way, go for last name, remove this one. Same for email, remove this one. Now if you will see this, if you will go to the live mode, if you will double click here, we will be able to see the value in editable mode. But right now it's not going to be edit. You can see when we are coming, it's removing, right? So for resolving that one, we have to create one more variable, that one more variable having all the column, so that when it will be in edited mode, that data, whatever data we are displaying here, that data should display from the one variable we created with all the columns. So go to the design again, go to the variable, create one variable, give the name as current row, and select the type as object so that we can add the column in that, right? And click on create. So even instead of selecting the column type as an object, we can select the type as employee BO. So once we will select the employee BO, whatever column we will have in the employee BO type, it will be available in the current row. So click here, you can see now current row variable created, and this row, this variable having this much of column. So we want to load data in this variable whenever user will move to the editable mode, and we will display the data in this editable table using that variable. So for that we have one event, we have one event call we have one event call for each and every table. If you will go to the event, we have one event call OJ before row edit. So whenever user will go for edit mode, we want to display data from that variable. So when we will go to the OJ row event edit, in this event here you can see right? So here we want to assign that variable. So go to the assign and this select variable. So we created current row, and what value we want to assign to this variable? We want to assign the value that we are getting as a row data, right? This row data is the value for the current row. So now if you will go to the page, whenever user will double click here, that variable will updated. That variable we created here, the single variable, the current row variable will updated with the with all this row value, right? So in edit mode, when user will be in edit mode, instead of displaying this value as a for or zafar from displaying this value from the ADP variable, we want to display the value from the variable we created. So for that we have to go to the code, and here in code if you will see, it's right quite simple. Here you can see that this is the template, and inside the template we have directly the input text. So instead of this input text we want to add the condition here. So when user will be in navigation mode, display the data in input, display the data in label, and when user will be in edit mode only, then display the data from input box. That kind of the logic we have to add. For that I have the code, even we used the same code last time. I will show you. So now if I can show you, you can see this is the code. So in the template, if you will see the code here, this is our template for first name, for last name, and the for email. For each and every template we are directly displaying the data in the input box, right? As we change by dragging the input box here. So now here we have to add the condition. What condition we have to add? We have to add condition if that OJ bind, if is the condition to add here, right? So if our current mode is navigation, then we have to display data in bind text instead of input text, and we will display the data from current row, whatever we have right now, that's correct. But if our edit mode, the current mode will be in edit mode, then we will display the data from variable we will create, the row variable, right? So the same logic we have to add. So I will just copy this code from here. I will go, and the first template I will paste the code here, and here we need to do some changes in the code. So what changes we want to add here, you can see this is our template for first name. So here if bind code this states that current mode is navigation, that's true. Did you want to change? So instead of showing data here, we will display the data bind text and that current data we want to show. That is perfect fine. If it is in edit mode, instead of displaying the data, displaying the data from the current data, right? So you can say this is the same. I don't want to change, so I will delete this one. That's perfectly fine. So in case of edit mode, instead of displaying data into the instead of displaying data into the bind text, it's displaying data into the input text. That is fine. But where from where we have to show? We have to show the data from current row. So instead of this variable, I will remove this variable and our variable name. So how we can add our variable name? So if you will go to the data here, go to the fx, and here you can see our current variable. Somewhere we have, yeah, this ones you can see current row. This is our current row variable, and that is first name. So I will go for first name. Yep. So you can see variable dot cur row dot first name. So this is our first name column. So the same we have to implement for all this, right? So the same way I will go for that is this is for last name. So that first one is correct. That in case of navigation mode, we will display data from that current dot data is the array data provider variable. Remember, when this we are saying that current dot data, this refer to the table we map, table data we map. So this is our table, and what is the data for this table? You can see the table for data is, you can see here, table for data is the variable dot emp adp, that is array data provider. So when we are referring current, it is adp variable. So now fine, here instead of first name we have to replace the first name with last name. We can copy from here, or if you don't want to copy, just you can delete this one. Again go to the data, and here instead of first name, here we have to go and we'll check the current row, and what is the last name column? This one, last name. So as we use same column name, that's why we don't have any issue to copy and paste. Again we will copy this one and we'll made for this email address. So I will delete instead of last name, if you will go to the data, instead of last name taking from here, we will go and map from this current name and email address, right? So that is the email address. Now save. So now if you will see here, we are done with our changes. So now this table will display the data from ADP variable, but whenever this will be in edit mode, it will display the data from the variable array variable we created, and that array variable having data whenever user will click on any row, that array variable will be updated with the current row, and that will be displayed over there. So if you go to the live mode, here if I will click any of the row, you can see we are able to see the data. If I click here, it will go, the data is going to remove. So why this data is going to remove? Because when it's coming outside, this edit mode, again it displaying the data from ADP variable, and we have not updated ADP variable yet. So now we want, user will whenever user will come outside this edit mode, this row should be updated in the ADP variable. So how we can do that things? For that, again we have one more event. If you will select the table, go to the event, and here you can see we have another event, that is OJ before row edit. And it was earlier, it was OJ before row edit, and now we have OJ row before row edit ends. It means that whenever user will go outside the edit mode, right? So that's the thing. So again we have to create one more event. Select, I will go for edit mode, and here we want, whenever user will come outside, so we want to update the array data provider variable, ADP variable. Now the logic is, for updating the array data provider variable, that is ADP variable, we have one action, that is fire data provider event. So I will drag this action here. Now here we have to select which ADP variable we have to update. So here in event target, we have to select the ADP variable. So I will go FX, and here this is EMP ADP is our ADP variable. So click save. Now we selected the variable ADP variable, which variable we have to update. Now it's time to update this variable with which data, what kind of data we will use to update the variable. So here you can see we have three options available with the ADP array data provider. The first option is add. We can add another row in that ADP variable. We can delete the row from ADP variable, and now we can update the one. So here we have to go for updates. So the data, for which data we have to update, this will be the data. So data will be current row, right? Data will be our current row variable. So click on this FX, and here you can see this is our current row variable. So here I will select this current row variable as a data, and what will be the key for that array data provider, based on which key it will update. So here in the key, if you will click on FX, you can see this is the row key. I will select this row key. So now we updated. So if we will go to the page designer again, so here we added two event. The first event, when user will go into the edit mode by double clicking. So when user will go to the edit mode, it will execute the event as table before row edit event, and in this event we updated our current row variable with the current row we have for the table. And now and already we updated the code, in case of edit mode, display the data from the current row variable. So that's the logic we already added. When user will come outside the edit mode, so again it will execute another trigger, that is the table before row edit action chain. And in this, what we have done, we updated array data provider with a specific row. That row key define the number of row, which a specific row with the current row data, that whatever current row data variable is storing, that will be updated into the ADP variable. So now go to the page designer again. If you will go to the live mode, if we will click on any of the row, so instead of Jafar, if I will make and go outside, you can see AZ is there. But now here you can see AZ is there, but we have to update this AZ into business object. Let me run this page again so that we can display in here. So it's taking bit time to load. Now it's loading. So now you can see page is loaded. Now if we will click on any of the row, S Suraj, SS, let me make it SS, and Ajay A, something. Now you can see we are able to see the updated value in the table, but the data is not updated in business objects. If I will go to the business object, this is our business object. and you will be able to see the old data in the business object only, that at Suraj, A Zafar, Ajay, something. It's not updated, right? For updating, we have to add one button so that whenever user will click on that button, the data will update it, right? But remember, we have to add one logic. So in earlier page, you can see when we were able to click on save button, whatever row there in the table, all the row is going to be updated business object. So now this time we have to add the logic to update only row which we updated from front end. So what we will do, here you can see. So whenever we are coming outside this edit mode, we updating this one into the ADP variable. So after updating this, we will add one logic. We will create one array variable. We will create one array variable, and whatever user will update any of the row, that array variable will store that specific row only. For example, from front end, user updated 3 row. So that array variable we are going to create, that array variable will hold only that 3 row which we updated. So we have to add that logic. Go to the table here, the development page. Now if you will go to the main page here, so now here we have to add that logic. For adding that logic, we have to create variable. So go to the variable type, we already created, right? So again we have to create one array variable. That array variable will store only updated row. Here you can see this emp adp is the array data provider variable that is storing all the records coming from business object. So parallelly we will create one more adp variable. That variable will store only updated row. So we'll give the name as emp updated row adp, and the type will be array data provider, that it will store multiple rows. Click on create, and here we have to select the item type, that is the data type, that will be empbo type, and the key attributes, again it will be id. So now here we created one variable, that variable having all the columns, whatever columns we created in the type, and this variable will store only updated records. So how it will store? So here you can see in page designer, we know that we have one event. Whenever user will go outside the edit mode, one event is going to occur. That event name is table before row edit action chain. In this event only, so once we updated the array data provider value, after that we will add the record into our new array variable, right? That logic we have to add. And you know that whenever we have to add any row into the data provider, you can see when we are using file data provider event, here this time we use update, because we have to update the first array data provider variable which is storing all the employee details. Instead of this update, we have to use add option for our new variable, array data provider variable we created. So again I will drag one file data event, and here we have to select the target value as new variable we created, that is emp updated row. And here what we have to do, the operation we have to perform as add. And here what data we have to add in this one, so we have to add the data as current row which we used here already, right? This current row. So current row will be added to this emp updated row adp variable. So here in the data go, and here we have current row. So this current row will be added here, based on which? So based on the key. So key, here we have the current key, that is row key. So this is the thing we have to add. And even if you will see, in case of update, in case of update, we require key to update the array data provider variable, but in case of insert or add the record, we don't require that key, right? So even we can remove this key here. So now here I remove. So now go to the design. So whenever user will edit any of the row, it will update the array data provider variable first, and then it will insert a new record, this record, to the new array data provider variable we created. So that's done. Now here we have to add one button. Here we have to add the button. So this button I will give the name as save. So we want whenever user will click on this button, whatever row user have updated, that all rows should be inserted or updated in the business object, right? So you can see this is our business object, and we already know that I have already explained, for each and every business object we have the API, that endpoint, to insert the data into business object, that is get the data from business object, all the operations, right? So go to the main page again. In the save button, we have to go to the event, and here we have one OJ action. OJ action event is that event whenever user will click on that button. So I will select this event, and here what we want, in this OJ action event, we want to iterate the loop to update the row. But if you will see in the previous development, we are going to iterate the loop based on array data provider, which is storing all the employee details. Instead of this one, what we will do, whatever row user will edit, based on that row we want to update. So whatever row user is going to update, we have that one array variable. That variable is storing that row, that is emp update row. So we will add loop on this variable instead of emp adp. So go to the action chain, add the loop. So here we have for each. I will drag this for each here, and for each, for which iterate, for which array element we have to iterate the loop. So here we have to select the item. So I will delete this one, and the item will be our emp data updated row. This is our data. So here I will select this one. So based on that, it will iterate the loop. So now here we are going to iterate the loop, and based on that iterate loop, for this loop we have to call the endpoint to update the business object. So before that, I just want to show you the added one notification, so that I will show you that the debugging process, so that whatever row will be updated, it will display a notification that much of time. So I will give the name as test notification, and message we want to show. So I want to display the message of for this one. So here you can see this is our local index, and if we can see index, right? So instead of this index, so what is our loop variable? This is our variable, right? So here you can see first name, if we can add, and instead of 0 we can use this index of this loop. Now click on save, and the display notification display mode I want to display as info. So now done. Go to the page designer, run this page again, and we will be able to see. You can see page is loaded. So suppose we are going to update the row Sachin Ramesh. Instead of Sachin Ramesh, I want to make Sachin T, right? And when we are going to click on the save button, it will, you can see, display the notification with the value as Sachin T. That's the key we use, right? The first name we use for using the index. It will go to the Michael, and instead of Michael, if we will select Michael Raj here only and click on save, it will display the Sachin T and Michael Raj. Here is one issue. So when we click on this save button, ideally it should not display the Sachin again, right? So here we have one missing. We will update our page in that way. So whenever user will click on this save, it will display the notification and remove the data from that array variable, updated record array variable, so that it will not use that variable again, right? So here now we know that we got to know. Suppose here this time, let me go to the page again, go to the action chain. This is our action chain. So once loop will be over, we have to empty the array variable. For making that array variable empty, right? So here we have reset variable option. So we will drag this reset variable, and which variable we have to reset? Here we have to select. So here we have to select that variable as this one. You can see somewhere we have our variable name. We have to select emp updated row dot data, this one, emp updated row dot data. So this variable we have to update, right? So again go to the action chain. This action chain is then button action chain, and once this loop iteration will be over, so what we have to do after this loop iteration, we have to use one reset variable. We'll drag, and here this reset variable will ask the variable which we have to reset. So go to the variable and select our variable which is storing the the record for the updated employee. You can see emp update row. So here I will select that variable. You can see variable dot emp updated row adp. So now once loop iterate will over, it will remove the data from this variable. Now go to the page again, run this page, and we will be able to see this one. This time we will not get the previous record. So now page is loaded. So suppose we are going to update the first value and making as Zafar, update the second row as Sue. And now when we will click on save, you can see we updated only 2 rows. So it's iterating the loop 2 times and displaying 2 notifications, right? So now here, if you will see again, if I will go, I will display and dot something. And now I'm going to click on save. It will display only one notification. as we already empty the record earlier, right? So now here, instead of displaying the notification, we have to update the row in the business object. For that, we will delete this notification, and here we have to add the rest call. You can see this is the rest call we added, and here we have to select the endpoint. So as we are going to update the row in the business object, that's why we have patch operations. So this, we have to select the patch operation here, select, and now here we have to provide the business object ID, and this business object ID will be for that row, each and every row. So select this business object ID. We know that in local we have already the index for that loop. So here in the business object ID, from where we want to display the data, we want to display data from this one. So I will go to the data map, and here we have the ID. So I will drag this ID here, and now instead of 0 we will use the index, and this is the index inside this local is the loop variable index, right? So now we will save. So whenever this loop will iterate, it will invoke the endpoint, and it will pass the URI parameters, the input parameters as employee ID for each and every rows based on that index. And here we have to pass the payload, that is body. So what body we want to pass? So we want to pass the body. If you will see, go to the current one, data item. This item we have to pass, to the body, but here you can see again we have the index. So instead of 0 I will use index, right? So now again we have to save. So for here you can see, for each and every loop we have the index. Based on that index we are fetching the data from that variable, that is emp updated row adp dot data, based on that index, and we are passing to this API. So now once this loop will over, it will remove the data from this updated variable, and we want to display one notification. That notification will be the confirmation, right? So I will give the name as summary, that will be the header of the notification. uh, update completed. And what do I want to display the message? We want to display the message as records updated successfully, and here error notification type will be confirmation, right? So now we are done with our development. Go to the page designer and run the page again. So here just we added one additional logic to store the updated row in that new variable. That's the only logic we added. We are going to update the Ajay to make as a capital, and the email as ajayrawal.121. Some we update, and once we will click on save, you can see it will update the row in business object, and we will see the confirmation message: updated completed, record updated successfully. Which record we updated? That 100 Neeraj Sharma and Ajay Rawat. Go to the business object here. If you will go to the business object, go to the data, you will be able to see the Ajay in capital letter. You can see Ajay, and the email you can see 121. And here you can see the main changes for which we have done this development. If you will go to the Sachin, now this time if you will do the changes in Sachin, Ramesh, I will go to the changes in Michael and make it Michael, Michael capital. Go to the changes in Raja, Rajakumar, Babu. Now here we updated 3 records. Now we are going to click on the save button. Go to the inspect, go to the notification type, so that I can show you how many REST call it's invoke notification. You can see when we will click on the save button, it will invoke only 3 times the endpoint. You can see 5 6 7. This is the row. You can see 5 6 7. For these 3 we updated the row. This is calling only these 3 times, okay, and showing notification. Again, if you will see, we are going for first row and making that Zephyr, and going to remove this one. And if you will click on the save, it will show only one update, because we updated only one row. And earlier in the previous page, whatever changes we were doing, it displaying the updating the row for all the records, right? That was the issue previously we were facing. So click on save. You can see earlier it was calling E1 2 3 4 all for all the records. That the changes we have done. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any queries and you want to ask anything, don't forget to put a comment. I will create another videos. In that video, I will show you that I will use the same development page only, where we will show you one button so that whenever user will click on that edit button, the row will be edited instead of making double click for each and every row. So that kind of things we are going to learn in next video. Thank you so much again. If you like this video and want to support us, don't forget to subscribe this channel. Thank you so much again.